welcome Essex County College family. This is our Essex Builds Leaders series brought to you by Student Life and Activities. Every semester, whether it's Student Success Day or not, we like to contract out some wonderful and fabulous speakers to come talk to all of our students. We tend to mix it up when we can, but sometimes we have those speakers who are just amazing, that really connect with our students, that are close in age to our students. I know our speaker today will appreciate that. And that really does improve and compound the connection that you may have with our speaker and vice versa for the speaker to our students. And we like to make sure that our students are getting something that they feel is relevant, something that is important, something that is worth their time and worth learning. And boy, do we have that for you today. We have our guest speaker coming back for maybe his fourth, fifth, or sixth time. I can't remember because I know he's been here pre-COVID, but this is about his fourth time with us virtually during quarantine, during COVID. And it's no surprise, it's Mr. Geo Derice. He is one heck of a speaker. He's talked to us about time management. He's talked to us about unleashing the leader within. He's talked to us about the secrets to highly successful students. Today, we have something completely brand new from Geo. Student Life this entire month has been promoting Black History Month activities and events. The college overall is focusing on Black History Month as well. And we wanted to bring Geo back to you and drop some serious knowledge on you. And when he told us that he has a Black History program to present, we were very excited before we even knew what it was about. After he told us what it was about, we knew that we simply had to bring it to our students. So we thank you for tuning in today. And we want to thank our highly publicized, highly professional, and one amazing speaker, Mr. Geo Derice. Geo, how you doing this morning, man? This afternoon.
I'm doing great, man. I am doing absolutely fantastic. It's good to be back. I'm super excited to be back, Joe. Thank you for having me today. I don't want to waste any time. I think that your guys' time is super valuable, so I want to just jump right in with this whole idea of like Black History Month. I know we've been celebrating it. There's some cool trivia that was done back on February 9th. We have an amazing program coming in on the 23rd. And I know there's some stuff that's been happening on campus with the food distribution, which is super cool to see. The students are continuously taking that hashtag seriously in terms of students first, in terms of building leaders. So this cool presentation that I have for you today is one that I'm very, very excited to deliver with you guys today. History, I don't know about you guys, it's a sore spot for me. It's a sore spot for me when it comes to history. I don't know about you, but I remember when I was in school, and thank you, Joe, for that message earlier about my age. Yeah, I'm not that far away from when I went back to college, but I remember getting the word history. And the minute I heard the word history, there was just a picture that would show up in my head. And if you guys was to take any guess, what color do you think the picture would be in? Just drop it in the comments. I'm just curious, like what color do you think the picture was in? Like the image I got in my head of history. What do you think the color of it was? Let me just see in the comments. I want to make sure this comment section is working. I'm looking at it real quick. What color do you think it was in? Kev says black and white. Kev, you read my notes. Like you got it right on the first try. Like exactly. This is what I thought. When I heard of history, I'm like, oh, you mean when TV had antennas? Oh, you mean the time when I gotta go in history? You mean like rolling down the window manually? Like, these people who got biceps back in the days. That's from winding down the window. Is that the history you're talking about? You mean when we take pictures, we gotta drop it off at the pharmacy and get it developed? You're talking about that kind of history? I don't have time for that. Like, that's for the old people. Yeah, that's not that. What does that got to do with me? And I'm just curious out of you guys, like just Joseph says, bunny ears, black and white. When we change the TV off of the TV, it's that old school, right? And I was always thinking about history from that perspective. And I just want to just get from you guys, when you see the word history, What images come up for you? What sayings come up for you? I told you about me. It's black and white. It's a TV remote that I got to go and stand up and change the channel manually. Drop in the chat. Let me know, like, the first image that came to your mind when you thought of history was what? What is that? I'm looking in the chat real quick. When you think of history, what's that first thing you start to think about? What's that first image that popped up? Let me see it. Let me see it in the chat real quick. All right. Let me see. Jesse said when we turn on the TV. Drop it in the chat real quick. Let me know, what is the thing? Like, what's that image? You hear the word history. Are you excited? Are you like, oh my gosh? Are you like, man, you mean that? Let me see it in the chat. Let's go real quick before we go and move forward. I want to know, what did you think when you heard history? You guys are all here on a Wednesday. It's nice and sunny. I know it's brick outside, but the sun is out. And you are sitting home here to get this presentation. What are you thinking about? I see ancestors. Yes. Jesse said boats. Like, forget cars. Forget flying cars, electric cars, boats. Kev says old inventions. Joseph said predecessors. Yes. What else? What else? What else? When you think of history, what else do you think about? The Three Stooges? You thinking about like music, says Joseph. Yeah, I got it, man. Silly Putty by Primus. I'm gonna download that right after we're done with this. I was jamming, y'all. Jen says presidents. Yes. So when you think of history, you start thinking about all these things. Can you guys put in the chat, what are some phrases or some common sayings that you hear about history? Like, what are some sayings that you may have heard about history? Drop it in the chat. Like, I see you guys talking about the images, music, president, predecessors, old inventions, boats. What are some sayings that just get passed around? Kev said, I have a dream. Okay. Mm-hmm. What else? Tell me, what else are sayings, thoughts that you hear repeated about history? Joseph said, history repeats. It ain't over till it's over. Okay. Wars, says Francisca. Wars. Going to the mountaintop, Dr. Martin Luther King. Yes, Joe. Okay, Joe. I see you, Joseph. I see it. Right? And one of the things that Joseph said earlier is, this is the one that I hear all the time. I hear this one about, hey, and tell me, put a 1 in the chat if you've ever heard this. If you don't know your history, you're deemed to repeat it. If you don't know your history, you're deemed to repeat it. Put a 1 in the chat if you've ever heard that saying before. Walker says racism. Yes. Jesse, I see the ones, right? We hear this idea of history. If you don't know it, you're deemed to repeat it. And here's the thing I want to just warn you. I want to warn you that, listen, that saying automatically assumes that if I don't know it, something negative is going to happen. Like, you're going to repeat something negative if you don't know history. And the reason why I'm so excited today, the reason why I'm so big on, and I promise you're going to get something so meaningful from this presentation. I'm excited because we're going to talk about the history that not you're deemed, if you don't know it, to repeat it. I'm talking about, let's go and repeat history on purpose. Not only we're going to know it, but we're going to go ahead and repeat it because of the success that past history has left behind, the clues. We're going to download that today so that by the end of this presentation, your leadership level is going to go up. You're like, how does Black History Month got to do with my leadership? I'm going to show you. They're connected. When we think about, what does Black history have to do with me? I promise you, it does have something to do with you, no matter what your race is, no matter your nationality, none of that stuff. All of these things is still relevant to us. This is why I think when we hear the argument that Black History Month shouldn't just be about Black history, it's our history. I want you to understand that there are opportunities from what we're going to learn today that is going to be easily applicable to you. So what I'm saying is, at the end of this presentation, what we're about to do together is we're going to go and dismiss those black and white images, and we're going to add some color to history. Now, if you're ready for you to dive in, give me a 3 in the chat. How do you know where you're going if you don't know where you came from, right? I see 3 in the chat. Give me a 3 in the chat if you're ready to dive in. Like, only if you're ready. Only if you're ready, I'm going to go and jump in. I see 3s. I see 3s flooding. Okay. So here's the thing. My promise to you is you will not walk away this presentation looking like this. This was Geo when he was in history class back in the day. I was like, come on, man. Please, just give me this. Give me a C and let's get it over with. Like, this is boring. But there's the reason why it's boring. The reason why we often think of history as boring, and let me know, put a 4 in the chat if this is you, where you would be like, I don't care about history because what does it have to do with my future? Anybody put a 4 in the chat if that's you. Like, what do I have to know about yesterday? What does it have to do with my tomorrow? Like, I don't understand the connection between the 2 points. I'm right here in the present. Here's the past, and here's the future. And in the present, you're telling me I need to care about the past. And the reason why there's a big disconnect, is because we're literally saying, without saying it, what does this have to do with my future? Like we're literally like, what does this have to do? And so this is the reality, and this is how I felt. But then when I started to learn the principles behind what happened with history, when I got to understand the 3 different parts of history that we could be a part of, and understand it, I started to change my perspective. And so here's a picture. On the left-hand side, that's me literally standing exactly where Martin Luther King Jr. did the I Have a Dream speech. I am standing there, and I can't tell you guys, like, I wish I was making this up. I felt some type of power. I'm not saying that I would have been able to go and give a good speech like Martin, but I'm saying like something when I was standing at the exact place where he was delivering that speech, looking out at the water and seeing the tons and tons of people that were there, I was blown away. When I got to go in the monument and see his sayings, it became real to me. And it became real to me because I was like, in his history, there is my story that has yet to be written, that I can go and learn from what he's done, learn from what he's experienced, and it can help me to create an even greater experience for my future and for those to come after me. And so this is why I'm so excited about what we're going to learn today, because this is not just about yesterday. It's cool to know about history. We could go to Wikipedia for that. There's a president of the United States one time back in the day. He was like, I don't need to know something if I could just go and look it up. But the thing about this stuff is we're going to know the information so we can do something with it. This is why we call it the art of making history. And so let me share with you the 3 things that I know for sure about history. The 3 things that I know for sure. Number 1, history has been made. It's happened already, right? As a matter of fact, we started this program 20 minutes ago. That's history. Do you guys realize like 20 minutes ago when you were sitting in here waiting and we was listening to the jazz and I was jamming it in here and stuff like that was history, but it's been made. Then there's the other side of it. History is being made. Right now, as you're listening to me speak, history is being made. The Art of Making History program is at Essex County College. We're live on a Zoom. It's being made right now. Jessica is here, Kev is here, Joe is here, Joseph is here, Francisca is here. I see it, right? Jen is here, Maria is here, Diana. Literally right now, this is a moment in history. And then I understand this other idea of that history will be made. What we do with our present moment right now is going to be somebody else's history. Don't miss that. What we do with our today is going to be somebody's yesterday. Somebody's going to say, look what Jess did 10 years ago when she was participating in the food distribution on Friday and this upcoming Saturday. Look what happened back then. Maybe we should do the same thing too. That's a piece of history. Like literally, we have an opportunity to go ahead and create that. And so my question to you is this. There are 2 types of people who's listening to me right now. There are those who are going to go and know, oh, wow, history's happening, cool. I'll just go and sit on the sidelines. And then there's those who's going to say, literally, if history is being made, then what part do I play in it? What part do I play in it? Like, how do I go and influence history? How do I go and help shape the world, the future? How do I shape it? How do I hand people who come after me the baton, not from behind, but with a lead? This is the thing that has happened with the great historical leaders that we're going to learn about today. So my question, and the thing that I want you to think about in the back of your mind, is which part of history will you take? Which approach will you take? Will you be the innocent bystander who just sits around on the sidelines and watch it happen? Or are you going to be the one who's going to be on the field, in the trenches, creating the history? The reality is that whether you participate or not, history is happening. The question is, and the challenge for leaders is, we don't watch history happen, we help create it. This is why I say it's like a leadership program, because it's not about just watching it. Guys, when we go to a sporting event and we watch the sporting event, who gets paid more? Let me know in the chat. Do the people in the crowd get paid more, or do the people on the field? Let me just see in the chat, like who gets more? I see general athletes with an exclamation point. Jessica said the people on the field, right? The ones in the field for sure are the ones who get the attention, they get the impact, they get the income, they get the influence because they decided to go in and play instead of just sitting back and watching. Francisca says the players, yes. So I hope that by the end of this presentation, you will say, Geo, listen, I don't even know what history I'm going to create. And here's the thing I know for sure. For some of you, you're listening to me right now. And as we go and talk about these amazing Black historical figures, you're literally going to look at me and you're going to tune me out a little bit. You might go on your Instagram, and don't do that. Don't be rude. No, but you might go and turn me off because you might be thinking to yourself, Geo, who am I to create history? What do I have to bring to the equation, to the conversation, to be even considered to be a person who will help to shape tomorrow? Like, think about, you might be thinking, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Who am I? What can I do? And I don't know if that's you, but I really firmly believe that inside of us, there's a part of us that will always believe, who am I? And I want you to understand this. Everyone who's created history, I promise you, the ones who've done it the way we're going to talk about today, they didn't have the accolades. They didn't have, hey, I got a doctorate degree in create history, and so now I can do it. It was just the principles that we're going to learn today. They just put those into practice. And then when they look back, and when we look back at what they've done, we're like, wow, look at the history they created. And so I want you to know that if you're listening to me right now and you may have a language barrier, you may feel like your age is a barrier, you might feel like your degree, the school you're in, you might think all of those things are barriers. And I want you to understand that those things don't stop you. And I almost would argue whatever you think is a barrier might be the foundation and the starting point of the history that you were called to create. Literally, the foundation may be exactly where you've been hiding, where you've been thinking this is too much, where you think I'm not good enough. Literally, this can be where your history is created. So let's just dive in. I'm already sweating. I got to go and drink me a quick water. I've never been so excited about history in my life. All right, so let's dive in. Tell me, guys, let's see the people on the screen. This is who we're going to talk about today. I just want you to go and put in the chat, who are these people? Some of you may know exactly who all three of them are. Some of you may not know who they are. So let me just go and start off with the person on the upper left-hand corner, the lady right there. I see Jessica says Harriet Tubman. We got Joseph, Harriet Tubman. Okay, so we got the lady out the way. Harriet Tubman is the first person. The second person, we kind of got a day off already. We got a day off for this guy, Dr. Martin Luther King. All right, good. We're good. The last one is typically the one that sometimes people don't know. They've seen the face, but they're not sure who it is. Anybody can go and put in the chat, guess who is the third person? We got Harriet Tubman. We got Martin Luther King. Who is the third person that's on the screen right now? I see a guess, Dubois, W.E. Dubois. Good guess. Good guess. Give me another one. That's not. Kev says George Washington Carver. Kev, did you look it up? Kev, did you take a screenshot? I know you good with technology. Did you take a screenshot and do some teleporting or something to figure this one out? Kev got it, right? So it's George Washington Carver. And we're going to go, yeah, he's quick. He was quick with that one. I don't know what hacky. Kev is good with the technology. He must have figured something out. right? So George Washington Carver is the third person. And typically we don't hear too much about him, but I'm going to share with you exactly why we should know about George Washington Carver. We should know about Harriet Tubman. We should know about Martin Luther King, because these three historical figures, and there's many others, but we're going to focus on these three because there are key principles that they can teach us about the history that they've created and how we can go ahead and do the very same thing right where we are, literally with the same talent and abilities that you have. You can do it today. So I'm about to go and give you the ingredients. We're about to give you the ingredients about it real quick. But real quick, before I go and start it, because I want to just test your history real quick. What do you know about Harriet Tubman? Anybody can just tell me what you know about Harriet Tubman? Put it in the chat real quick. What do we know about Harriet Tubman? I just want to just get a little idea. Let's see, before I go and tell you a little bit about them, what do we already know about these historical figures? Anybody, just put it in the chat. What do you know about Harriet Tubman? Kev said she created the Underground Railroad. She's known for that. There's several people who helped create it, but she was definitely one of the main, if you was to go and say one of the Mount Rushmore of the Underground Railroad, Harriet Tubman would definitely be on it. Walker says she freed the slaves. Right? Yes, she freed the slaves, Walker. Absolutely. She freed the slaves. She helped to create the Underground Railroad. That's what she's really big and known for, is that, right? When it comes to Martin Luther King, what do we know him for? What do we know Martin Luther King for? Besides the fact that you get a day off in January. I want to get something else. So go ahead. Go ahead. What do we know about Martin Luther King? Drop it in the chat. We got Harriet Tubman, Underground Railroad, freed slaves. He's one of the key figures of the civil rights movement. Absolutely, Joseph. Yes, absolutely. When we think about the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King Jr. is definitely a name that come up. What else do we know? Well, I showed you an image earlier, like motivational speeches, Jessica. Yep, motivational speakers. I have a dream. His ability to use his words, the metaphors, like, oh my gosh, like, wow. Like the way he was able to go and convey messages and move people with his words. Super powerful guy, right? What do we know about George Washington Carver? Drop it in the chat. What do you know about George Washington Carver? I know some people, we've never seen this guy before. But what do you know about George Washington Carver? Anybody? Wild guesses? Maybe I might know about George. I got a funny story about George Washington, by the way, when we talk about him. He was the first to create peanut butter. He gave out freedom to equal rights, maybe. Someone said PB, peanut butter. Scientists, yes, Jessica, yes, I see it. Peanut butter, Kev, PB, yep. So those who love those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you got to go and thank George for that. You got to say, George, thank you so much, because my breakfast be on point because of you, right? Like, thank you, George. Right? So we got scientists. So we're going to talk about them a little bit more in detail. Kev says, thank you, George. Somebody clearly likes Jif. Peanut butter. I got you, Kev. So let's dive right in. The 3 ingredients to making history. We're going to go and cover the first one. Let's start off with Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., guys, I want you to understand something that he did. And beyond just his speeches, the thing that we want to know about Martin Luther King and the significance, we know he was assassinated, right? But one of the things that blew me away when I was doing research about him was the fact that anybody can tell me how many times Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested? Let's put it in the chat. I just want to see guesses. How many times do you think Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested? Let's see it in the chat. Just any guesses. Jessica says 5. I think for me, 1 is too many, right? I don't know about y'all. But Joseph says 20. Kev says 2 or 3 times. Jen Fazio says several times. Yep. So more than once. Any other guesses? 5, 20, 2 or 3 times, several. Martin Luther King Jr., let me just give you guys the answer. This is kind of like almost like an extension from last week when we had trivia, right? Martin Luther King, Francisca says 10 times. Well, let me tell you, Francisca, literally, Martin Luther King was actually arrested 3 times 10. It was right under 30. He was arrested 29 times. Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested 29 times. Now, I don't know about you guys, I don't know about you. Here's what I'm telling you about Martin Luther King. And this is going to give birth to the principle that we're going to learn today. Martin Luther King was not driving in the street, didn't know he broke a law and got arrested and said, "Oh, what's going on here? Why are you arresting me? I don't have no idea." When we're talking about 29 times he was arrested, we're talking about a person who knowingly knew that his actions would lead to him getting arrested. And he still decided to do what he was doing. There was like, "Yo, Martin, you know you're going to get arrested if you do that, right?" And he's like, "Well, then where are the handcuffs?" Like, do you understand? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if you understand. Like, this guy knowingly did actions to go to jail. Like, knowingly he would go to jail. I was even close, for instance. 29 times he was arrested knowingly. He lost his life fighting this fight for civil rights and everyone having equal rights, and, you know, believing that I have a dream that one day my children will be able to go to school in the same places as white people, that they would have access to things just like white people, that we would just all be equals, just like the law and the Constitution says that would really be the case. And he fought for this, so much so that he was willing to get arrested, so much so that it cost him his life, and so much so that it gives us leeway and it gives us the first ingredient to creating and making history, and is the idea of living by your convictions. Living by your convictions. What do I mean by that? Good question. Living by your convictions, what I mean by that is, what do you believe in? What is the right? Not like the right that you believe in, that you have not seen, but you're like, this is so wrong that I will go and be willing, like Martin Luther King Jr., I'm willing to go and give up something, my life, my comfort, my freedom, or whatever little bit of it that I have. I'm willing to give that up. I'm willing to sacrifice that because I believe in this so much so that even if it means that to go get arrested, then that's what it's going to have to be. If that's what it's going to take, then that's the shot that I'm going to take to make sure it happens. He believed in it in that level. And my question to you is, what is something that you believe on that level? And don't answer it right now. We're going to go and talk about it a little bit later. But what is it that you believe in so much so that you're like, Geo, this is so wrong. I believe this is so wrong that if I'm willing to fight for it. I'm willing to go and put my life as I know it on the line because this is so wrong and this deserves to be fixed, corrected. I need this to go right. What is that for you? What is that for you? Is it homelessness? Is it financial illiteracy? Is it access to college? Like, what is it for you? Is it jobs? Is it women getting a chance to be CEOs and vice presidents? Like, what is it that we need that you're like, yo, this is so wrong? Is it WNBA players having to go all the way to Europe to go and make any kind of substantial money, and they can't even go and play the sport that they love in the country that they were born in because of the inequality of pay? What is it that you're like, listen, this thing bothers me so much, Geo, that if I'm at a dinner table and somebody brings it up, dinner's canceled. I can't even keep my mouth shut. Like, I'm about to go off. Like, this thing gets my blood boiling. This is a thing that gets the hairs on my arm. If you got hair on your arm, it gets your hair on your arm up. This is the stuff that when you go to sleep at night, you can't get a good night's sleep knowing that this wrong still exists. I firmly believe that Martin Luther King Jr., that was the thing that was burning in his heart, in his soul, deep down in his heart, his corazón, like right there in his chest. It was just like, this is not sitting well with me. It is not well with my soul, knowing that these injustices are happening. This was his conviction, and that conviction cost him his life. But I also argue that if he wasn't convicted by it, would there have ever been a Black president in the White House? 5 minutes away from where he gave his speech, the idea of an African-American sitting in the White House was something that maybe he one day would hope it would happen, but did he know? but he was willing to fight for it. And because he was willing to fight, and because others was willing to fight, that actually happened. Because of the convictions. I want you to think about it. What if you stood on your convictions? What future can somebody say, wow, the door opened up for me because Jessica did that? Because Jessica stood on her convictions. Because Francisca stayed on the convictions. Because Maria stayed on her convictions. Because Kev, because Joseph, because Mr. Graham, because because they stood on their convictions, I am now able to walk through that door that was once shut for me. That's what living by your convictions are. What is that for you? I want you to think about that. Keep that in the back of your mind. Then we have George Washington Carver. You guys have alluded to the fact that George Washington Carver was a scientist. George Washington Carver was able to go and help make peanut butter. But you want to know what's the crazy thing? I told my wife one day, babe, if you ever want to get me another chain, get me a chain with a peanut as the little symbol at the end. She's like, why do you want that? I said, because I'm inspired by George Washington Carver. She says, what does he got to do? He made peanut butter. I said, no, that's not the point. That's not what I'm saying. George Washington Carver created over 300 things from a peanut. Guys, when you start thinking about, hey, I can't do nothing with this small thing, go and think back about George Washington Carver. When you think about, oh my gosh, all I have is this thing, I want you to remember George Washington Carver made 300 things with a peanut. Like, I don't know if maybe it's just me who gets excited when I hear that something small can become all these different things. And I don't know about you. Maybe there's something small that you care about. Maybe you feel even in yourself you're small. Maybe just listening to George Washington Carver's story about what he was able to do with a peanut to go and have 300 inventions is absolutely blown me away. We also going to think about Thomas Edison, one of the most famous inventors. Do you know that Thomas Edison actually offered George Washington Carver a job? Now, you know, when the inventor, the guy who created the light bulb, offer you a job, come on now. That's like somebody in tech trying to go and work and someone, the head of Google, say, you want to work for us? You're like, heck yeah. That's like somebody who loves Apple products and you're like, yo, hey, we want you to come work for us. Oh, I got iPhones, I got iPads, I got computers, all these things. I would love for you to work for you. Now, could you imagine a scientist, an inventor in their own right? And Thomas Edison says, come work for me. Here's the crazy thing. Thomas Edison, back in those days, offered him $100,000. That is the equivalent right now. That money would be about $3 million. And do you want to know what George Washington Carver said? I'm good. I'm like, George, come on, man. Like, we can turn up. We can make it rain if you like, just take this money. And he's like, no, I'm good. They're like, yeah, George, like, why would you pass up on all that money? Come on now. Nah, I'm good. Then they asked him this other question. So now you already hear he turned down money. Now, I told you guys that he had over 300 inventions that he helped to create from a peanut. In the chat, can we go and do another quick trivia? How many patents? You all know inventors have patents. How many patents does George Washington Carver have? Let me see it in the chat. I'm looking in the chat. How many patents does George Washington Carver, the guy who created 300 different inventions from a peanut? In the chat, let me know. How many patents does George Washington Carver have? I'm gonna see in the chat. I'm waiting. Don't all guess at once. Post it in the chat. Write in the chat how many. I know some of you guys are thinking like, hey, is this a trick question? Kev says 6. Okay, good guess. Munuria, I hope, I'm sorry I'm butchering your name. No idea. That's a good guess. Jessica says 15. Remember, he had 300. He had 300 things that he created. How many of you guys you think? Kev says 6, no idea, 15. Let me get 2 more guesses. Let me see. I'm going to tell you who's close. Let me get 2 more guesses. Let me see in the chat. Who got another guess? I see 8. Okay. 6. No idea. 15. 8. 3. 3. 17, says Francesca. Jessica says 3. Okay. So we got some guesses here. Let me tell you, let me see if I got anybody who got it right or who got it close. The correct answer is 3. Jessica got it correct. 3 patents. 3 patents. Like, bro, so you're going to turn down $100,000. Really, George? You're going to go and turn down the patents too? Here's what George said. George said, if I spend time to go and get patents, how will I possibly create all these things? And we're like, yo, what for who? And here's the principle we want to learn from George. George was all about helping other people. He didn't do anything for clout. If you're trying to create history so you could be famous, you're doing it for the wrong reasons, you won't create the type of history that will be remembered for the right reasons. He was doing it because he wanted to help people. He helped farmers who was losing their crops with peanut. He helped with the cure for helping to advance to create a cure for polio. He helped do that. He was trying to go and help his fellow man. As a matter of fact, if you look at his tombstone, look what it reads. It says, a life that stood out as a gospel of self-forgetting service. He could have added fortune to fame. He could have added fortune to fame. Remember, we were talking about fortune, $100,000 from Thomas Edison. Fame, yo, man, this guy got more patents than everybody. He could have had both, but caring for neither, he found happiness and honor in being helpful to the world. Guys, you understand this? Like, he found happiness and honor in service. Martin Luther King has a quote that says, everyone can be great because everyone can serve. So when you think about this idea of like, yo, George Washington Carver, the second principle, the first one was, anybody remember the first one? I just want to make sure we didn't lose anybody. What was the first ingredient to making history? Let me see it in the chat. Anybody remember? Let me see it in the chat. We got to make sure we're on the page. So I see idea. What was it? It start with the letter C. Let me see it. Let me see it. What's that first ingredient that we got to have? If you don't got that ingredient, we ain't going to make it. Conviction. Yes, conviction. The second thing is helping other people. The ingredient has to be that you're helping other people. It can't be about yourself. Remember, this tombstone literally gives us the blueprint. Self-forgetting service. That means forgetting of myself, service others. Big difference, right? So conviction, service to others. Then we have Harriet Tubman. Did you guys know that Harriet Tubman could not read? She was hit with a rock when she was young as a slave was trying to escape, and literally it would give her seizures. So she's struggling reading, seizures, still nonetheless, there's rumors that she freed hundreds. There's other stories that say she freed even 60 to 70 slaves. Here's the reality. It's hard enough to free yourself. The fact that Harriet Tubman went back to where she was enslaved and went back and forth 19 times. Are you serious, Harriet? 19 times you went back and forth? Wow. Talk about worrying about others. Talk about conviction. Harriet Tubman was about that person. She actually has a slogan, this thing that they say, she has this thing that she goes by where she says, I went, and when I went to get you, I never lost you. When I got a passenger on my Underground Railroad, I never lost a passenger. You guys understand? Like she says, when I show up on the scene, just know you just stand free on you if you come in with me. Like think about that and think about the risk that she took to continuously, like I don't know about you, maybe I'm selfish. I don't know if you know somebody. Put a 1 in the chat if you know somebody, when they get something, they're not about sharing, is caring. Put a 1 in the chat if you know somebody like that, where they get something, they go ahead, they succeed, and they don't come back. They don't tell you what they did. They don't go and say anything. They're like, yep, I made it. You go make it. I see ones in the chat, right? You know, everybody knows somebody like that. But Harriet wasn't that type of person. Harriet was like, hey, if freedom tastes this good for me, then I gotta go and give it to others. When she was free, that's a privilege she had, right? Like I'm free. It's such a privilege for me to be free. Yeah, it should be a right, but yeah, I'm free. But she said, this is not a privilege that I can enjoy by myself. I need this to be something that others experience. And so she went ahead and took the third ingredient, which is she took a risk. She took a risk. She risked her life. She risked her freedom so that others could also enjoy that same privilege she had. When we think about how do I create history, what is it that you have that others should have access to as well? Is it a quality of education? Is it freedom? Is it access to certain things? What is it that you have the privilege of having that you should be sharing with others? Harriet Tubman understood that and she took that risk. So here's the reality. We have conviction as one ingredient, serving others as another ingredient, and taking risks. Here's where the history happens. Right there in the middle where all of these things come together. And so here's the part of the presentation where now is about to be your turn. We talked about Harriet Tubman. We talked about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We talked about George Washington Carver, and we now know a little bit history. But now what do we do with what we know? Now that we have the ingredients, what are you going to cook? What history are you going to create? That's my challenge for you. And so here's what we're going to do. We're about to break out into breakout rooms. I see there's about 14 of us here. So we could probably break it up into 2 people per room, essentially. And what we're going to do before we go into these rooms is we're going to have 5 minutes. And I want you to answer this question in the room. And please participate, because this, again, the difference between sitting on the sidelines and being on the court is your participation. So as we go and dive into this, I want you to think about, what is something that I believe in? What is a wrong that I feel like is not right? And I want to make it right, that I believe this is something that is burning in my heart and soul. I believe that this is something that is worth fighting for. What is that conviction you have? So that's question number 1. The part 2 is, who is it helping? Remembering that it has to be self-forgetting service. It can't just be about you. Maybe there's others like you, but you got to think about, what is it that you want? What history do you want to create that is others focused? Who is it going to help? And then the last thing is, I want you to think about, like Harriet, what's at risk for you doing this? What are you putting aside? What are you giving up for this greater gain? What is the thing you're willing to sacrifice? So we're going to answer, what do you believe in so much so that you're willing to fight for it? Who is it going to help? That's number 2. And number 3, what are you willing to give up? And let me give you a couple of examples. I want to close the prison pipeline for African-American males. I feel like that's wrong. I want to go and fight that cause. That's one person who said that. I want to make college accessible for Hispanic immigrants. That's a cause, right? That's a cause. I want to make financial literacy something that all minorities have. That's another cause. I want healthy meals for all people. I don't want just the people who are wealthy to be able to have healthy meals. I want everyone to be able to have access to fresh fruits and vegetables and good foods without all these hormones and extra stuff to go and make it last longer, but it's going to go and cost your health in the future. These are all examples of different convictions. These are just ideas, and they each give up something, right? You might deal with rejection as your risk. I know that I'm going to fall on my face 100 times, but it's so worth it. I will go and do it even 100 times more. I don't know what that is for you, but we're going to go and take 5 minutes and go in the breakout room right now. And I want you to go and answer, what do you believe in at your core? What do you believe in with conviction? Who is it helping and what is at stake? What are you willing to give up? What's the risk? All right, whoever is helping me with the breakout rooms, you can go and help me with that now. Let's just get 2 people into the breakout rooms. We got 5 minutes right now to go into the breakout rooms. Here's the thing I want us to understand, and this is big. I want us to understand this. Like, first and foremost, I know that when we're going into, and I get it, I've been in breakout rooms where I literally will turn off my camera and like make believe I'm not there, even though I see your name and your box in there as well. But one of the things that I realize is that sometimes you're like, I don't want to speak up. And I want you to understand, like, we are in a unique opportunity being in rooms with our peers where there's really no wrong answer to the question. Whether it's, I want to go and help make education accessible in Africa just as much as it is in the United States, where it's a requirement, where like, if your kid doesn't go to school, we'll come and take your kid away from you. We want to make education that normal. And somebody shared that in one of the breakout rooms that I was in. And I was like super powerful. And I love the fact that she shared this idea of when I asked, what are you putting at risk? What you put on the line? She's like, I'm giving them this small thing and it's taking me up to 7 hours to do it. She's giving up her livelihood as she knows, like 7 hours, You know how much shows I could binge watch on Netflix for 7 hours? And she's like, nah, this thing is really bothering me. Like, this is not okay. Like, this education should be accessible to all people. And I want the Africans to have access to this. And I think that that's super amazing. I just want you to understand, like, there is no size. When you look up at who created history, there's no like, hey, you know what? You got to be 5 feet, 10 inches to be able to go and create history. Or, you know, your IQ needs to be 267 and you got to go and have the SATs. Like, the SAT should be named after you because you so smart. That's not what's required. What's required is a broken heart. Martin Luther King's heart was broken for seeing the injustices. Harriet Tubman being free and seeing her others that she was enslaved with not have access to that broke her heart. George Washington Carver seeing farms get lost because they didn't know how to go and use the peanut the way he was able to, broke his heart. And so when I think about what it is, and I'm okay with you not sharing it, maybe you didn't share it in the time that you were in the breakout room, but I want you to understand that you can't just leave a broken heart the way it is. Like, we got to do something about that. And so I just want to just share that. But I'm just curious, what else was shared in the breakout rooms? I didn't get a chance to go and hang out too long. Anybody, you could go ahead and unmute yourself and just tell me, like, what was the thing that you said you had conviction over? I just want to hear, you can unmute yourself. I'm curious to hear what it was, because I kind of didn't get to see everyone's I have a dream speech. So you guys can unmute yourself real quick and let me know, what was that for you?
Well, for me, Geo, was you kind of caught the end of what I had brought up, was the fact of the amount of debt that students incur, especially trying to get an education. And it starts off with the community college. It starts off with the fact of some of us can't go from high school into a 4-year college. Some of us have to take that community college route. So in order for us to prepare ourselves for the workforce, a lot of these businesses, a lot of these corporations and companies say, you know what, a high school diploma isn't good enough. We need to see something else for you. We may have the work ethic and have that conviction to sit here and say, I can do this job, but it's about that piece of paper. And if that piece of paper doesn't show that we have that degree, then you're bypassed. The problem is in order to get that degree, you have to sit here and you have to now fall in line and go one of two routes. You either have to come out of pocket and pay for school yourself, or you have to go apply for money. But what a lot of people don't realize that, yeah, right now you're getting this money, but at the end of the day, when you're leaving this university or you're leaving this college and you're moving on towards an associate's degree, a master's degree, a bachelor's degree, all these levels occur some type of monetary definement. And you're going to walk away with all this debt. 40, 50, 60, 70, $80,000 worth of debt to a minority is critical. It's, do I pay my tuition so that I can get the job that I need in order to be able to provide for my family? Or do I pay my light bill so that my kids can continue to go to school that I need because they're home because of COVID? And a lot of these families are making these decisions because right now they don't have what it takes to be able to survive on a day-to-day basis. And they're putting an education on hold because they have to survive. But unfortunately, these corporations are saying, well, this is what you signed up for.
No, that's you.
What you were getting yourself into when you decided to say, I'm going to go back to school to get an education, to get a better position for a corporation, that because a lot of the times they're not just going to give it to you. They want you to have that experience, but they're not willing to train you to give it to you for free. Everything costs.
No, that's huge. I think that's very big, right? It's one of the biggest frustrations. Someone says you are on point. You can see it in the chat, right? It's big. And again, I think this is the thing where I say, like, what's your conviction? There's no one who can give you that conviction, right? So like for some people, that doesn't break their heart. And that's fine. That's not your fight to fight. The beauty of creating the history is we all have our own lane. Like there's no wrong one. It's like the alphabet, and then you just go A1 and then you just go numbers. It could be A1, A to 100, whatever. We all have that stuff. And so I like the fact that you shared, like, yo, this is bothering me. Like these people, you tell them, hey, you want to go and you want better job, go get a degree. And it's like, yeah, but you telling me to go get the degree, and now at the expense of what? Like what's now not available to me because I went to go get the degree and I can't go and pay the light bill, or I can't go and provide the day-to-day necessities. And so what happens, like you said, they put education on hold. And so this is a fight that's worth fighting. I want to know from your perspective, what is the thing, and I could clearly see who is it going to help, but what is the thing that you're putting at risk? Like, what's the risk in pursuing this fight that you're talking about, Jess? Jessica, I don't know if you're still there. I just asked the question about, like, what are you putting at risk? Like, what's at stake? What's the exchange that you're making per se to go ahead and make sure that this is the reality that we all experience? I don't know if you just, I see you muted for a second. You might be out away for a second. Let me just see in the chat what I got here. But this is good, right? Who else want to go real quick while she's away for a second? Who else got a chance to speak about what is something that bothers you? Maybe it's Kev, Joseph, Walker, who's walking literally, which is interesting. All right, Jess, so real quick, what is the thing that you're putting out?
I'm just getting off of work and I'm,
Listen, and I appreciate you doing that. Like, you're like sitting here like, listen, I want to listen to what this is about so much so that I'm going to, even if I'm walking, it's cool. That's super dope. So Jess, tell me real quick, like, what is the thing that you're putting at risk for pursuing this fight that you're talking about?
It's about the time and effort that it's going to take to be able to create this plan. So that means that I'm taking time away, not only from myself, I'm taking time away from my family. I'm putting things that I may want to do on the back burner because I feel like if I have an opportunity to bring this issue to light on a greater platform, then I'm going to take my opportunity and run with it rather than sit here and say, oh, well, I got this opportunity. I was given a platform to present this situation that somewhere along the line, it may not be fixed overnight, but if it takes whatever amount of time that it takes, I'm willing to do that because I feel like in the long run, once my kids who are 5 and 9 now are going to be sitting here and deciding one day, mommy, I want to go to college. What is it going to cost me to put them through college? Because I know what it's costing me now to put myself through college.
Yeah.
So that sacrifice to have to sit here and say, if I have to not have a family event because I have a Zoom meeting that I have to deal with and I have to put this on a bigger platform, then that's what I'm going to sacrifice in order to make sure that somewhere along the line, my fellow students and their next generation can have that opportunity to say, you know what? You guys don't have to pay for school because of this situation, or the ability to not have to pay for school because this was presented and it was given to you. But when I was in school, I had to, and these are the sacrifices that I had to make in order to be able to get the education that I got and the diploma and the certification and whatever program that I was in order to be able to put you guys now through school and not have to worry about where's the money coming from.
No, that's huge. That's huge. It's the word sacrifice is a big one. And this is why when I say, like, there's always a sacrifice, right? The cost, there's a great cost, but you got to think about what's the greater good that is being created as a result of what you're doing. And so when you think about like the generation after you, and this is the whole idea when I say life is a big relay race and we're all passing batons and all of us has received a baton. And we all know what it feels like to receive a baton, knowing that we don't even have a lead. Do you know what it feels like to go and get a baton when you're running from behind? You literally cannot afford to make a mistake because you automatically lose. Now think about the fact that we can go and create a history that will literally allow someone to run from a lead. Think about what that looks like. Imagine when you go and say, hey, you know what? I've been putting $50 a day, a week in some account for you to go to college because the college that I went to had a food distribution program. And because of that, I didn't have to go and buy groceries that week. And so $50 went towards your college because this group of students saw us to do something outside of themselves. So that way I can go ahead and do that. That's George Washington Carver in practice when we talk about helping others.
We're doing it again on Saturday.
Right? Come on Saturday. Right?
Come on Saturday.
Right? So this is the thing when we're talking about like, what do you do? It's like, yes, something has to go. Something has to go for something to go to another level. And this is what people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., George Washington Carver, Harriet Tubman, Madam C.J. Walker, name the person, they've paved the way. And I want you to understand this. We're all building bridges. And we're supposed to, as a bridge, connect the past and the future. And if we don't do anything, what we're literally telling the future is to jump, but there's nothing to catch them. Like, I want you to understand that. Like we have a moral responsibility as leaders to take what has happened, understand it, digest it, and then go and cook a meal for the people who's coming. And this is why I'm so, like, when I say, like, what's your conviction and stuff like that, this is why it's so big. So I just want to hear, I heard Jessica. Who else? I just want to hear one more person share, and then I'll take any questions you guys may have as well. But what else is something that, like, burning inside of you, like, yo, Geo, you know what? That's not right. And I want to participate.
Well, Geo, I try my best too.
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead, Joseph.
Okay, thank you. Well, I have a lot on my mind about the Black Lives Matter movement, which involved the police shootings of Black men, women, and children.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ever since the shooting of Trayvon Martin, certain cops from dozens of cities across the U.S. have been shooting innocent Black men, women, and children for unknown reasons, whether they misinterpret if they do something bad or they don't do something what's right from wrong. And they keep showing it on broadcast, even on social media, on YouTube. It's so sickening.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know why racism still lives on. Because it's just like a poison that allows one drop that spreads into a person's mind and spreads to another, no matter what the cause or circumstance is, through trials and tribulations of life itself.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And so that's the thing that you're like, Geo, like, I hear it, right? Like, I love the fact you hear the words, right? You're like, it's sickening. It's that thing when you start thinking about convictions, you want to think about what makes your hair come off your arm, what makes your stomach turn, what's sickening, what's disappointing, what's disheartening, all those things, right? It's disheartening for someone to not be able to go to college. It's disheartening for an African-American male, woman, children, elderly, all these things to go and say, well, I don't know if I'm coming home today. I don't, that is sickening, right? And so what are you willing to put at risk, Joseph, for that fight? Because again, something has to be given up for us to be able to go up. What is that for you?
It's to sacrifice my protection and my safety and to go out the street and protest against the systematic racism and the criminal justice system of the U.S. that could be considered as corrupt.
And we've seen this, right? Like, there was a lot of protests that happened. I even participated in several of them, even in the middle of COVID, where we're supposed to be socially distancing. And here's the thing I want you to understand, and all of us can learn from this. We may feel like my presence, I'm just Joseph, I'm just Jessica, I'm just Walker. Like, who am I? Like I'm just a person. And here's the reality. I can't tell you how many times I've been to a protest where somebody at the protest, if they weren't there, I wasn't going to be like presently in the protest myself. It was that one person who would go and say something. I'm like, ooh, shucks. Like, well, you know what? I need to go and scream a little bit louder. Like, this old lady was here screaming like this. And then you start to see it. And I want you to understand, like, it's power in numbers. And the more of us that stand next to each other, right? And you've heard Joseph's conviction. You heard Jessica's conviction. We all have convictions. And I'm encouraging you guys to not be silent about your convictions, because the reality is this. When we think of leadership, I think sometimes we miss the last part of the word, which is ship. No one goes in a ship by themselves. A ship got a lot of people in it. And so when we don't share our convictions, how is it ever that somebody can come alongside of Jessica? How can somebody come alongside of Joseph? How can somebody come alongside Walker? How do we go at Moonra, right? I'm hoping I heard. Can I say you move? I hate that I'm messing up your name, but she said something about like Africans getting education, and I was loving that. And I'm like, well, how do I, like, if I know it, then I can participate. But I can't attend a party or an event that I don't know where the location is. I don't know the invite. I didn't receive one. Like, you have to have that. And so I think it's super important that we get to the place, and it doesn't need to be eloquently said. when you speak from your heart, you can butcher it and people still feel it. We think, oh, well, my English is not that good, so I'm not going to say nothing. It's like, but the heart speaks a different language. And even broken English or English that's not so great, or even saying it in a different language, the heart understands. Love is love. Care is care, right? And so I want us to not feel like I'm too small or I don't belong in the conversation or that I can't create history. I want you to understand that none of these people who created history knew they were making it. Harriet Tubman was like 4 feet something, barely could hear, suffering from seizures all the time. How is she getting people freed from slavery? I could understand if you were like, yo, Harriet Tubman was one of the rarest women. She was 8 feet tall, 500 pounds. You're like, yo, man, you what? She's King Kong. I'm scared of her. Free the slaves. No, she was a person who's like, you know what? I dare you to go and tell me they ain't going to be free. And you're like, damn, so she's serious. Oh, snap. Like, I ain't messing with her. Could you, like, this is the attitude. That's when I say conviction is like, yo, what you like, yo, you, what? Martin Luther King, you're going to get arrested. Okay, well, here you go. I ain't going nowhere. That's a threat. Well, arrest me then. And I want us to just think about it that way, because I really believe we will miss an opportunity. And I love Jessica said it earlier. It is truly an opportunity that we have to be able to participate in history. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you right now, not everyone takes that opportunity. And there's a quote that says, the most expensive thing in the world is a missed opportunity. The most expensive thing in the world is a missed opportunity. And so my hope is that you guys don't miss the opportunity to be able to be not just spectators of history, not just consumers of history, but those who are encouraged enough and bold enough and courageous enough, like I said just now, to have the audacity to go ahead and create it. At this point, this concludes our presentation. I would love to take any questions you guys may have about history. What do you want to go and create? I believe that, again, we can all learn from each other. I'm inspired every time I do this program because I hear students who are selfless. And I tell people all the time, if you ever hear somebody says, well, I don't want to ever raise a child in this world, they're probably saying that because the world they've seen is selfish. But when I go into rooms like this with students like you guys, and I see the selflessness, I see the self-forgetting service mindset, it gives me hope that this place will be better. And it may take a little bit longer than we would like, but the reality is that if we show up, it'll come sooner than later.
Please give an unbelievable virtual round of applause for Geo Derice with another amazing program. Seriously, Geo, thank you again. This was unbelievable.
Yes.
All right, I want to thank you all for tuning into Essex Builds Leaders today. We are extremely grateful for Mr. Geo Derice coming back again for another installment. And we want to thank all of our students for tuning in today. As always, we appreciate your support. We're here for you. Take care of yourselves, and we will check you next time. Thank you, Geo.
Okay.